What's up, everyone? Welcome into DodgerHeads, presented by DodgerBlue.com, your home for the 2020 World Series champion Los Angeles Dodgers. My name is Jeff Spiegel, joined as always by Daniel Starkand. Daniel, a bizarre week. The Dodgers go 4-2, but they lose 2 out of 3 to the Giants. I'll start you with a big question today, which is, what's one word that you would use to describe how you feel about the Dodgers right now?
Honestly, I feel good, and I know that's not how a lot of other people feel coming off the series that just happened. You never want to, lose 2 out of 3 to the Giants, especially with everything that was kind of on the line. The last time they're playing each other, the division was tied. You want to win that series, but I think at the end of the day, like as long as it wasn't a sweep, like 2 out of 3 either way is not a huge difference. Like it's one game, like they're down one game right now. That could change in the next few
Yeah.
hours. Like they play again today at 1 o'clock. So even though they don't play the Giants anymore, like they could still make up that ground easily. Obviously the Dodgers aren't playing great right now. I think, we'll get into some of the numbers. They're not pretty at all. The offensive numbers
Yeah.
specifically. So they need to pick that up. But I still feel good, I see a lot of people negative on Twitter, like, oh, it doesn't feel like the year for this team. But you also have to remember, like, who's gonna beat them,
Yeah.
Like you may not feel confident about the Dodgers, but what team do you feel super confident in? Like I know the Giants are playing well, but it's not like they're head and shoulders above the Dodgers or anything. Like every single game they've played has been, close and down to the wire. I think the Giants won the season series 10-9, so they've been pretty much even all year. So I still feel good, but they definitely, they got to pick it up offensively if they're gonna do this thing.
Yeah, 25 games left in the season. The word I picked is confusion. I'm very confused about the Dodgers in
Very
2021. They're one game back of having the best record in baseball. I think that's a statistic that most fans seem to forget very quickly. Now, I went back
Yeah.
and looked. Their winning percentage is solid, but it is well below what it has been, basically dating back to 2017. I think 2018 was the one year that was close. 2017, 19, 20, all far better win percentages. So that is fair. But the confusing part on the other side is the offense just can't figure it out. We're going to get into that in just a moment. But there's games they're supposed to win, they lose, right? You look at Walker Buehler versus a bullpen game, a second straight bullpen game after an 11-inning game on Friday, and they lose. The games you expect them to lose, to some degree, they win. They go and sweep the Braves, who are the hottest team in baseball, or one of the hottest team in baseball, and the Dodgers go and sweep them. So that's confusing. The Giants are confusing to me. They don't make any sense. We're losing to Steven Duggar and Darren Ruff and Yaz, plus garbage
Yeah.
bullpen games, and it feels even. Like it doesn't, like I didn't leave Friday thinking we deserve to win. I didn't get to watch most of Sunday's game, but I don't think you feel like they deserve to win these games. And that's
No.
confusing to me because you look at the rosters and the Dodgers should be slaughtering a team like the Giants on paper. So confusing is the word for me because, again, they're in the playoffs as we stand comfortably. We know they're going to make the playoffs no matter what. There's 25 games back. They're only one game back of 25 games left, one game back of the division. If I told you at the end of this week, a week ago, that the Dodgers would be one game back, we'd be thrilled. We weren't expecting a
Right.
sweep of the Braves. We weren't expecting the Giants to lose 3 out of 4 to the Brewers. They won 4 out of 6. If I had told you the Dodgers were going to win 2 in Atlanta and 2 from the Giants, you'd feel great about that. And so when you zoom out, you get some perspective to say, hey, things aren't all bad. But it's still confusing because, as we're going to talk about in a moment, the offense has just been dreadful.
Yeah, and they got, another tough series coming
Yeah.
up. 4 games against the Cardinals starting today, so they're gonna have to pick that up. Like you said, we would have taken actually we talked before the
Yeah.
week. 4 out of 6 was kind of what we were hoping for, our expectations. So you take that every day, but ideally it would have been kind of the opposite. Like I would have been fine losing 2 out of 3 to the Braves and then sweeping the Giants. That would have been
Yeah.
better. But at the end of the day, you take 4 out of 6, like you said. They were 2.5, 3 games back a week ago, and now they're only one game back, and that could change at any time, of course. So things aren't all bad; they're not all good either. So I think your word was probably better than mine, confusion, and that's how it's been all year.
Yeah.
It feels like this Dodger team, they're either winning 10 straight or losing 8 out of 10. And I know they're not doing that right now. Like they're not that bad right now, but I don't know. It feels like everything's good or everything's bad this year. And obviously injuries have played a big role in all of that. They lost another key guy in AJ Pollock, which we'll get into as well. But
Yeah.
the timing with that one is certainly not ideal. that means more playing time for your boy Cody Bellinger, who still hasn't figured it out. So, we're in crunch time now. It's September 6th. There's
Yeah.
25 regular season games remaining. So, it's go time.
Yeah, and that's the thing, right? If the team is playing like they have a switch somewhere that they're going to be able to flip, well, hopefully they flip it, because this would have been the series to flip it. 25 games to go now. They've got to figure it out. So here's a plan for today's show. As Daniel hinted at, there's a 1 o'clock game today, so we're going to try and power through this and get this out ahead of that. But I want to talk a little bit about Sunday's game. Some interesting things happened in that one. Obviously, Walker Buehler struggling, the offense struggling. We'll do stock up and stock down, which, just forewarning, is going to be stock down. We're going to be talking about the offense in that stretch. The pitching's been amazing. No disrespect to the pitching. We'll get to that. I want to talk about options. We're going to talk about Cody Bellinger and Chris Taylor and how bad those two have been. Whether there were moves that the Dodgers made they shouldn't have made, whether there are guys in the organization that could help them. We'll talk that. Then we'll get to some quotes. That includes a Kershaw update, a Gonzalen update, an AJ Pollock update, a Danny Duffy update, and then we'll talk 4 games against the Cardinals, 3 games against the Padres as well. But let's talk about Sunday's game. The Dodgers lose 6-4. And look, we're not going to sit here and rehash the umpiring of this one, okay? Was it great? No. But did the Dodgers lose simply because of umpiring? No. They lost because their hitters were terrible. Here's the scenario of the perfect storm to lead to this one. In the top of the second, the Dodgers had second and third with nobody out and 1 run in. Chris Taylor popped out. Cody Bellinger struck out. Walker Buehler struck out. In the bottom of the second, this was the moment, the second inning. Dodgers have second and third, no outs. They get with 1 run in, and they get no more. The Giants come up right after that. They have second and third with 1 out and no runs in. They get a triple and a single and score 3 runs. That's the difference. And when you look at it, you have Chris Taylor and Cody Bellinger on one side, and Yastrzemski and Duggar and Ruff on the other. And we lost 3-0 in that, in sort of back and forth. Will Smith flies out with the bases loaded in the third. Chris Taylor strikes out with the bases loaded in the fifth. The Dodgers went hitless in the first, fourth, sixth, seventh, and eighth innings. They had just 1 hit in the third and the fifth. Awful, awful, awful offense. On the pitching side, Walker Buehler, 3 innings pitched, 6 earned, 7 hits, just 1 strikeout. Still leads the league in ERA. I think this was pretty detrimental to his Cy Young candidacy. Just when you come to a narrative perspective, this was a rough one, especially on Sunday Night Baseball, nationally televised in a game that lots of people were watching. So from your perspective on Sunday, again, Walker Buehler versus essentially a third straight bullpen game, and the Dodgers blow it. This one felt like a gut punch.
Yeah, for sure. And then of course Pujols hits the homer late to make it close, and then you start thinking like, oh, if only we got a couple of those hits earlier, like we would have won this game. We would have been able to steal it from them. So yeah, I think gut punch is a good way to describe it. I didn't watch Friday's game. I know that one was even worse, but this game was just full of frustration from the beginning. Like you said, you just kind of laid it out. Like pretty much the Dodgers had every opportunity to score and just couldn't. And then the Giants had the same exact opportunities against our ace and were able to come through. So I guess you got to give them some credit there. It's obviously not easy to hit off Walker Buehler, but that was clearly, just not his best outing. I think every pitcher has one of those outings a year. Buehler has gone this long without having any outings like that. He's gone 6+ innings in every start except 2 now. And the other one, I think he went like 5.1 or something. So this was really his only true like stinker, which, it happens. He just wasn't missing any bats. They were hitting everything. I don't think there's anything to really look into with that. As long as he's healthy, I'm still confident in Walker Buehler at the end of the day. But yeah, to me, it was just frustrating because of the offense. They were getting guys in scoring position. And I know everyone loves to pile on Cody Bellinger, but like you said, Chris Taylor, I think was equally as responsible. He's
worse.
Up with
he was worse yesterday.
Yeah. Exactly. He was over, he was up there with second and third, no outs, pops one up. So yeah, just a really frustrating game and one that I'm actually glad they're playing kind of early today because I want to turn the page from that one.
Yeah, and one thing that is interesting to me is, and we're going to talk batting averages here in just a moment, it's not just the batting average. Like somehow it's not just that these guys are hitting 150. It's that they can't even get productive outs. Like Chris Taylor can't even get the ball out of infield pop-up. Like if you put the ball on the ground, there's a chance you score a run. If you put the ball in the air to the outfield, you score a run. Like anything is an option. And the same goes for Bellinger, and it's an infield pop-up and a strikeout. Those are the little things. So we're going to get to strikeout rates here in a moment, but those are the pieces that just irritate me because it's not just, oh, bad luck, oh, whatever. It's no, you can't even get productive outs. You can't even put the
Yeah.
ball in play if you need to. On the flip side, with Buehler, interesting stat. He had never lost to the Giants. He had never given up a home run to the Giants. Both of those things fall by the wayside yesterday. In your estimation, what did you see out of Buehler? I mean, just one strikeout. He wasn't missing bats. There was a question about tipping pitches. I don't know if that was just because of how bad he was or if somebody had inside information that there was a tipping of pitches. I think it was like his 6th time pitching against the Giants, so that's always a possibility of being an issue. But was there anything about Buehler that you saw? I'm not going to say concerning because it is just one start, but I mean,
Yeah.
not missing any bats in the biggest game of the season.
Yeah, I mean, I can't really speak to the tipping pitches thing. I didn't notice anything glaring,
Yeah.
but obviously those things are subtle most of the time, so it's possible, but I'm not sure. I think he was just kind of, missing his location. There was some calls he wanted to get from the umpire that he wasn't getting, so that probably led to some frustration. And like you said, he was just not missing bats. Credit to the Giants. They were kind of hitting everything.
Yeah.
They were finding holes. It wasn't like, I mean, they hit some balls hard, but it wasn't like they were just tearing the cover off the ball. They were just kind of placing them well.
Yeah.
And it happens. I mean, we knew that Walker Buehler was kind of the guy we could count on. We thought, I was honestly kind of like, as soon as we won Saturday, like, oh, like we got this series
Yeah.
in the bag. It's Walker Buehler versus a bullpen game tomorrow for the Giants. But it's just unfortunate, it happens to the best of them. And I guess we'll have to see how he looks in his next start, because it's possible that fatigue is playing a factor. He's almost at 200 innings here. I think he's at like 183 or something, which is like second in the league. He's never thrown 200 before in his career. There's still a lot of time left
Yeah.
here. He's probably got
4
like
more
4
starts.
regular season starts and then a whole postseason run. So, in a perfect world, they'd be up a few games now and be able to skip him once or twice and get him a little rest before the postseason. But, they don't really have that luxury right now. They don't even have
Yeah.
a full starting rotation. We're still here in September going with bullpen games in the biggest series of the year.
Yeah.
I guess we'll see how he looks in his next start. I'm hoping it's not a case of fatigue and his arms kind of wearing down after a long season, but it's definitely possible. That's something we've been talking about all year with him. He's made every single start. They haven't been able to skip him at all. They haven't been able to throw him on the phantom IL
Yeah.
for some whatever injury. I will say they've done a good job of giving him and all the other starters, extra days between starts, but that can only go so far.
Yeah.
That's not the same as skipping or throwing you on the IL and limiting 10 to 20 innings, which makes a difference. So we'll see how he looks. I'm not overly concerned, but I just hope it's not a factor or a case of his arms getting tired.
Yeah, there were a couple pitches I remember thinking like that was a pretty decent pitch. Like, I mean, there were cutters that were right on the inside edge that were getting pulled for the Duggar triple. I believe it was Ruff who had the single. It was like a slider that was a foot and a half low and outside.
Yeah.
So those types of things, that's what I think makes you concerned, though, because when you make a good pitch and they're still hitting it, that means they're seeing you really, really well. So something to monitor. Again, I think the Giants, there's a level of familiarity with Buehler. Obviously, his next start is projected, I believe, against the Padres, which we'll get into, another team that's seen him a number of times. So we'll see what happens there. Let's shift gears and go stock up and stock down. Normally, this is a sequence in which a segment in which you and I pick 3 guys and we say stock up and stock down. This is going to be a stock down, and I want to focus on the offense. I did this a week ago. I looked at all of the offensive numbers for the entire lineup, and we're going to do this again. This is over the last 3 weeks, okay? So we want to get a decent-sized sample. This is going back to August 16th. I want to give you batting average and some numbers. So there's 4 guys on the team that are hitting above 250. Okay, so Trey Turner is hitting 333 and 72 at bats. Corey Seager, 283 and 60 at bats. So he's a guy that's turned it on of late. Will Smith, 260 and 50 at bats. AJ Pollock, 255 and 55 at bats. This is where it starts to get ugly. Justin Turner, 226 and 62 at bats. Austin Barnes, 211. Max Muncy, 161 and 62 at bats. Chris Taylor, 158 and 57 at bats. Albert Pujols, 154. Mookie Betts, 152 and 33 at bats. Zach McKinney, 125. Cody Bellinger, 105, 57 at bats. There's literally not a statistic where Cody Bellinger's not at the bottom of every single list. But you look at that list: Turner, Muncy, Taylor, Betts, Bellinger, all hitting below 226. And really, Turner's the only guy over 160 on the list that I just mentioned. Let me throw some more statistics at you. How about strikeout percentage? We talk about the inability to put the ball in play. Austin Barnes, 32% of the time striking out. Max Muncy, 30% of the time striking out. Chris Taylor, 38.5% of the time he's striking out. Albert Pujols, 26.7% of the time striking out. Mookie Betts, 22% of the time striking out. McKinney, 30% of the time striking out. Cody Bellinger, 27% of the time striking out. Some other numbers, to give you perspective, Taylor is striking out about 11.5% more than his career. Mookie Betts, 9% higher than his career average. So it's brutal there. I'll throw some more numbers at you. Chris Taylor and Cody Bellinger, probably the biggest culprits of late. Chris Taylor is hitting the ball hard just 21.2% of the time. That's 15% lower than his career average. His last multi-hit game was August 13th. Okay, it's September 6th today. His last multi-hit game was August 13th. Since August 6th, he has had just 3 games in which he did not strike out. Cody Bellinger, his batting average in the last 3 weeks, 105. On-base percentage, 119. Slugging percentage, 123. His weighted runs created plus, 100 is league average. Cody Bellinger is negative 35. I don't even know you could go negative on that statistic. He's negative 35. His hard hit percentage is just 28.6. That's 14% lower than his career. I mentioned this the other night on our show, on the live show I did Saturday. He walked Saturday night in the 9th inning. That was his first walk in 59 plate appearances. He's
Yikes.
over the last 3 weeks, he has a 1.7 walk percentage. That's 11% down from his career average. He has, over that stretch, he has the worst batting average, the Dodgers as a team over the last 3 weeks have the worst batting average in baseball, 206. They're 29th in on-base percentage at 287. They're 26th in slugging percentage at 377. They have the 5th worst strikeout percentage in all of baseball. Here's the craziest stat. I just gave you some unbelievable stats. You ready for the craziest stat, Daniel? The Dodgers are 14-5 over the last 3 weeks. 14-5. Yep. So shout out to the pitching staff. 2.37 ERA, the best in baseball. Scherzer, 0.48 ERA. Jansen, 0.90. Brule, how about Brule? 0 ERA over his last 9 1/3. Urias, 1.62. Treinen, 1.54. Andre Jackson, 1.04. So I threw a lot at you. My point, let me bring it big picture and zoom out here. This problem is not solely based on the shoulders of Cody Bellinger, is point number one. Again, Muncy, 161, Betts, 152. So there's other guys involved. Chris Taylor has been just as bad as Cody Bellinger. I think that's another headline. And the pitching staff is keeping them in it. These numbers, they don't compute for me. They do not compute for me. Cody Bellinger is one thing, but Chris Taylor and Max Muncy to have stretches where they're hitting 160 and 158 over 3 weeks, striking out a third of the time. Those are the numbers that my brain just can't compute.
Yeah. And I'm glad you decided to go back 3 weeks and point out the record, because that's kind of what I was thinking. I know they just lost 2 out of 3 to the Giants and the offense didn't perform, but the offensive struggle started, much before that. Yeah. And it kind of got glossed over a lot because they've still been winning games, which, like you said, that's a credit to the pitching staff. They've been awesome. But yeah, this offense, they haven't been producing for a while now. It's been bad. You just read the numbers. Those aren't decent numbers. Those are horrible. Yeah. Those are guys who get DFA'd numbers, and obviously these are big names, so that's not going to happen. But it's a problem and it needs to be fixed. And it's concerning because guys like Muncy and Taylor, those were arguably the Dodgers' 2 best players in the first half. Those were guys you could count on every night when other guys were struggling. Other guys were in and out of the lineup because of injuries. Those were the 2 guys that kind of carried them. And now they're struggling and other guys aren't really picking up the slack. It also makes the Pollock injury that much more unfortunate because he was kind of one of the only guys with, solid numbers. So that's a big loss right there. That's losing one of your best hitters. And essentially the guy you're replacing him with is either Cody Bellinger or Chris Taylor on a given day, so and those guys are the 2 worst, that are struggling right now. And obviously we know we can't really count on the Dodgers bench to come in and pick up that production. They might have some solid, pinch hitting appearances or whatever, but you're not going to throw Billy McKinney in the lineup every day and expect any more production than what you're getting from the other
Yeah.
guys right now. So yeah, it's not great, and we know the talent is there, so it could turn around at any time. And it feels like with this team, like it's either everybody hits or nobody hits. So they could score 12 runs today and then kind of pick it up from there. That's entirely possible. But yeah, it needs to happen soon because you can't keep relying on your pitching staff to only give up 2 runs every game
Yeah.
because you could only score three and you go 1 for 12 with runners in scoring position or whatever. The offense needs to start doing their part because this pitching staff has been incredible, and it's been bullpen games. It's been some guys who we never heard of,
Yeah.
a month or two ago. You mentioned Justin Brule. We didn't know who he was. So yeah, the offense, I don't know how you could say anything other than they've been horrible because you read the numbers. Those that's bad. And anytime you got Chris Taylor and Cody Bellinger at the end of the lineup there, that's just like kind of like a black hole. And now you got a 7 through 9 where you're not getting any production whatsoever. And that puts even more pressure on the guys at the top who aren't doing well either.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's very unfortunate timing with all this.
One other note, like a guy like Justin Turner, who's fifth on this list, hitting 226, it's worth pointing out since August 1st, he has just one home run. And that home run came way back on August 15th. If you go back to the beginning of August, his slugging percentage has dropped 41 points. So he's hitting 225, but when he does get hits, they're these bloop singles and, sort of rollers through the infield. I mean, if I think of the last few times I think of Justin Turner getting a hit, it's ground balls up the middle, it's ground balls through the hole, it's batting average on balls in play, pretty fortunate luck. So that's the other piece, is it's not like, Cody Bellinger is hitting 105 but has 6 home runs. Like, none of these
Right.
guys are hitting for power on top of it. You mentioned,
And also something you mentioned earlier is how they're not even getting productive
yeah,
outs. Like you could have a ground out that drives in a run. You're still 0 for 1. Your batting average still looks bad, but you're helping the team,
yeah.
contributing to winning, and that's just not really happening, at the moment.
Now, let me ask you a question. You made the comment about, these are DFA type numbers. Well, the Dodgers have a bunch of guys that have been DFA'd for performing like this. I'm curious as we look back on some of this. I mean, as bad as Cody Bellinger has been, as bad as Chris Taylor has been of late, obviously Taylor, I mean, I don't know. Bellinger has been sort of talked about as being shuffled in and out of the lineup. That hasn't quite happened yet with Taylor. It probably deserves to be happening. There's 2 guys that the Dodgers have let go, have DFA'd, that are worth mentioning. The first is Yoshi Satsugo. This is a guy who looked really bad with the Dodgers. They outrighted him to AAA. He stayed there. He crushed it at AAA. For some reason, the Dodgers decided not to bring him up. He has gone to Pittsburgh. In 19 games with Pittsburgh, he's hitting 267, an on base of 320, a slug of 844 with 7 home runs. So that's option number 1. Option number 2, a guy that you and I were rightfully critical of, DJ Peters, has gone to Texas. In 30 games, he's hitting 207. Now, this number is the ugly one, 234 on base percentage. So nobody's getting excited about a 234 on base percentage. But he does have a 474 slug with 9 home runs in 30 games. So those are 2 external options that the Dodgers let go. And then you've got internal options. Luke Raley in his last month at AAA, 367 on base, 366 batting average, 446 on base, 653 slug. Zach McKinstry has an OPS over 900 at AAA over the last month. Steven Souza has an on-base percentage of 405, a slug over 412. Like, how do you think the Dodgers have handled this? Cody Bellinger's not a guy that you can send down to the minors, obviously. They've been weary of even benching him or pulling him to some stretch. How would you... I mean, obviously the Yoshi one hurts. And I know I could see on your face that one hurts you.
Yeah.
So we can look past tense, what mistakes might they have made, but also moving forward, how would you handle this?
Yeah, well, let me just start with the 2 guys you mentioned, because like you said, the Yoshi one hurts, because that's something not that we saw coming, but we were saying when he was raking at AAA, like, let's call this guy up and give him another
Yeah.
chance. He might have figured something out, and for whatever reason, they just didn't do that. They just decided to let him walk to the Pirates, which made 0 sense to me. Like, why not have a guy? Maybe you catch lightning in a bottle. And, like, this is a guy who had a lot of success over, in Japan. He was a big time power hitter. It didn't translate to the majors, but then he goes down to AAA and he starts, mashing. So why not give him a chance
Yeah.
and see if that could stick at the big league level, and it clearly has with the Pirates, at least so far. I know there's a lot less pressure over
Yeah.
there. It's not like he's just going out and playing games. There's nothing really at stake, but there's no arguing that the Dodgers, at least on their bench, they could use a guy like that. Like I don't know what Billy McKinney has done to
Yeah.
deserve everything he's gotten as far as a roster spot and playing time. But to me, we were saying to dump him for Yoshi a while back. The DJ Peters thing I'm not as concerned about just because he got plenty of
Yeah.
opportunities, and even in AAA with the Dodgers, it's not like he was tearing the cover off the ball. I think he had like a 690 OPS in AAA, which is even worse because it's such
Yeah.
a hitter friendly environment and it's the AAA level. So that I'm not quite as bummed about. But yeah, I didn't even realize a lot of the other guys you mentioned that they're raking at AAA right now. I mean, you got to start trying some of them. So like Zach McKinstry, at the very least, he's spent most of the year with the big league team. So why not bring him up at this point? He's not a great defender, but he gives you versatility. At least he could play different spots. So yeah, I think you got to start trying stuff at this point because you're not getting any production from anyone. And it's crunch time now. There's only a handful of games left. You can't just sit around and say, oh, like, let's hope Cody Bellinger is going to come out of it. Like, he has to
Yeah.
come out of it at some point. I know I've been saying that for a majority of the year, but we're at the point where we can no longer say that. It's September 6th. The whole season has gone by, and he's not even making any progress. In fact, he's getting worse
Yeah.
kind of as the season has gone on. Like the Cody Bellinger we've seen over the last couple of weeks has been worse than the Cody Bellinger at the beginning of the season that was also really
Yeah.
bad. So yeah, I think you got to start trying something. A lot of I know AAA, you can't look too far into AAA numbers just because of what I just mentioned about how hitter friendly it is. But at the same time, sometimes when a guy's hot, you got to capitalize on it. He's not going to be hot forever,
Yeah.
so might as well call them up when they're hot. The worst thing that happens is they come up and suck, just like everyone else who's
Yeah.
up here right now, and then you send them back down or DFA them, and then you're right back where you were.
Cody Bellinger over the last 3 weeks has a 119 on base percentage and a 123 slugging percentage. That's an OPS of 342. Like,
Doesn't get worse than
it's
that.
not. It's impossible. It's impossible. Like, I look at this. Steven Souza, he has a 405 on base percentage. That tells me at least he's got an eye to take a walk. Like, Luke Raley has a 446 on base percentage and a 367 batting average, and he's slugging 653. So he is putting the ball in play. He's taking walks and he's hitting for power. I don't understand. Like, defense is the only possible explanation. But, like, from my perspective, even if, like, what's Luke Raley's worst case scenario? Like a 550 on base percentage? Like, that's 250 points better than Cody Bellinger's. That is a big enough gap to justify the defensive drop that you get by losing Cody Bellinger, in my opinion. By losing Chris Taylor, in my opinion. So McKinstry's on the active roster, by the way. Like, McKinstry's on the 28-man roster.
okay.
Because he
That's
got
good, at
added.
least.
He was one of the
Right,
two
right.
guys added on the 28. So,
Right.
but he has, and look, he hasn't been good at the big league level, but I just think we need to adjust expectations because even DJ Peters, I look and I say 234 on base percentage. First of all, that's double Cody Bellinger's, but at least it's coming with 9 home runs. Like, at least the guy, when he makes contact, is hitting the ball a long way. And Peters was actually a really competent defender by all metrics. So, I don't know. I mean, if it were me, I would start trying things. I mean, I might throw Cody Bellinger on the 10-day IL personally and just see hey, go reset, man. Like, oh, shoulder soreness, got to get 10 days on the IL. Take 5 days off, don't even touch a baseball bat, and then come back and just, like, simplify your process as much as possible. And in the meantime, Luke Raley, Sheldon Noisy. I remember thinking when Noisy was up, like, it wasn't great, but at least I felt like they were competitive at bats. I felt like he could take a walk, he could foul a ball off, he could put the ball in play. So, I don't know. I mean, again, to your point, Luke Raley, what he's been doing over the last month, that seems like a no-brainer. Steven Souza has done it at the major league level. He had some competent at-bats. Why not? Zach McKinstry. I mean, Matt Beatty, obviously a guy that hasn't been playing a ton in AAA because he's been with the big league club. But those are all guys that I'm like, why? I mean, look, it cannot get worse. When Chris Taylor, Cody Bellinger, and Walker Buehler were due up with runners on second and third, did you think they were going to score any runs that inning?
I thought I
One
thought it was up
max.
to Taylor. I thought it was up to Taylor, to be
Yeah.
honest. Like if Taylor could drive in some runs, we might score. And I also thought it was
Oh
funny
yeah.
how A-Rod
This
was saying that they should walk
Cody.
Cody. And I was like, yeah, please do that by all means. Like let's get Trey Turner up with the bases loaded and 2 outs. That
Yeah.
would be awesome.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Bueller,
that
just
would.
stand there. If that's the case, it's like
Yeah,
Walker, don't even swing the bat. Just stand up there, and if he throws you, I honestly, like, I don't mean to make this personal. I don't understand the A-Rod appeal. Like, nobody liked this guy as a player, and he's a terrible
yeah.
analyst. Like, it'd be one thing if it was Pedro Martinez, and let's say he was terrible as an analyst, it'd be like, well, at least everybody loved Pedro as a player, or David
Yeah.
Ortiz, or whatever. Like, nobody liked A-Rod when he was a player, and he's terrible as
Mhm.
an analyst. I don't get it.
Yeah. And I don't think
Ugh,
Vasgersian's any better, if I'm being honest. I will say though, A-Rod he made one decent point, and you kind of just mentioned it as well when it comes to Cody. You mentioned how he should simplify his swing, and A-Rod pointed out too how he's pretty much just swinging as hard as he
yeah.
can every time, and I know that's what he's kind of always done, and that's what he had a lot of success with. Obviously, he won an MVP, Rookie of the Year, blah blah blah. But at a certain point, you gotta make some sort of adjustment, shorten up, try to put the ball in play, go the other way, drop a bunt down the third base line. Like you read out the numbers, he's
Yeah.
got a 3-something OPS. Like you're not too good to drop a bunt
Yeah,
down for a
totally.
base hit when they're shifting on you. Like you got to make some sort of adjustments, and I don't think we've seen Cody make a single adjustment all season.
Yeah, both. I mean, Taylor too. Like both of those guys, I'm like, you
Yeah,
have the speed, bunt.
yeah,
Start bunting. Start
yeah,
bunting. Like there's no reason not to. With second and third and nobody out. Like if I'm Chris Taylor, drop a bunt down. Like you're
yeah.
not gonna. You're not
Even if you get out, you might get a run home.
exactly.
Like
Exactly. So, anyways, maybe they don't even trust him to squeeze. Like maybe they don't even trust like his eyesight. I don't know, to like be able to get a squeeze down or something. So, anyways, well, let's shift gears. Apologies to the pitching staff. They probably deserved more of our time than that, but the hitting has been so bad. I can't believe that stat that they're 14-5 over that stretch. I mean, that's an unbelievable accomplishment by the pitching staff. Let's get to some quotes. This was an interesting quote. We'll sort of go chronological order. This was Mookie before the Giants series. He was asked after the Braves series, is the Dodgers' confidence at its highest point after sweeping the Braves? His quote, I think we've been pretty confident team. I think for a while we've been a pretty confident team. My question to you, does this look like a confident team to you? Do the Dodgers look like a team that's playing with confidence? I don't know what that looks like, but I was shocked that he said, I think for a while we've been a pretty confident team, because we just read the numbers. Like, what do you have to be confident about as an offensive baseball team when everybody's hitting 150 for a month?
yeah, I mean, I will say that was coming off a sweep of the Braves, and the Braves were a hot team coming into that series. They had just taken over first place, so I guess that was kind of they were at a high, I guess, even though the offense still wasn't performing. But they might not look confident, but they should be. I mean, they still have. When you look at every
Yeah.
roster in baseball, you're taking the Dodgers, even with the numbers you just read off. Like still on talent alone, you bet on the Dodgers over anyone else. So they should be confident. I don't think they're playing with confidence. Like they're not going up there necessarily thinking like I'm gonna hit a home run or
Yeah.
I'm gonna get a base hit. Even like there's some of them go up there timid or scared or whatever. So I'd like them to play with more confidence. But I will say at that time I guess they were, because they played well in that Brave series. I'll give them that.
Yeah, here's the irony. Here's the Dave Roberts quote post game after they scored 2 runs in 11 innings. Why did they struggle? Quote, I don't know. I thought outside of Corey, we didn't swing the bats well. I don't know what's behind that. We've seen Desclafani a lot, seen the guys in their pen. I just don't have an answer. I know we didn't really threaten all game. It seemed like we were playing from behind and on our heels all night. So there's like a 3-hour difference in those two quotes.
Right.
We've been confident for a while, to your manager saying like, I have no answers for you. We didn't swing well. We didn't hit well. I don't know why. I don't have an answer. We didn't threaten, yada, yada, yada. So just a fascinating sort of back and forth. And I've kind of been on that train of like, even a week ago, I was getting crushed in the comments for being negative, because I was just like, hey, I know the Dodgers are winning games, but like the sort of the underlying metrics here say that this isn't sustainable. And I think
Right.
that came to bear over the weekend. Here's a couple of positive updates. Clayton Kershaw, this was on Saturday. Dave was asked how he's feeling. He threw a simulated game on Friday. Quote, came out really well. Talked to Clayton earlier, said he's planning on making a start for Oklahoma City on Tuesday. That'll probably be a 3-inning situation. I believe he's had a bullpen since then, or at least some sort of throwing session, and still feeling good. Maybe it was just a Sunday update that he still feel good. 3 innings for Kershaw on Tuesday. I was asked about this on the live postgame on Saturday. To me, that feels like a situation where if you look ahead to the Padres series, the Dodgers have a TBD scheduled for Sunday. Could Clayton Kershaw be a bulk guy against the Padres on Sunday? Obviously, we're going to talk about Tony Gonsolin here in a moment. He could be the other one. But do you think Kershaw, if things go well in that Tuesday 3-inning sim game, does he have rehab start? Does he have another rehab start, or does he just come up to the big league club and get his next 3 or 4 inning appearance at the major league level?
To me, I say why not get him up in the big leagues? I mean, it's health permitting, of
Yeah.
course. Like you said, we got to see how he looks and how he feels in that start. We know if he's healthy, at the end of the day, it's Clayton Kershaw. You're still taking him over whoever the last, guy on the Dodgers roster is right now. So yeah, I think you definitely have to consider it. We're at the point where you pretty much have to win every game. The Dodgers, they're still going with bullpen games. Guys like David Price, haven't been effective when they're pitching, and also he's been dealing with some health issues of his own. He was supposed to pitch Friday and didn't. I think he threw like a little over an inning yesterday, but yeah, they could use him for sure. And I'd say overall though, just on this update itself, like it's positive news. Like the fact that he's going out for a rehab assignment, the expectation is he's going to throw 3 innings. That's great news because that means he still has. We still got a month here, and that's plenty of time for him to ramp up and be able to get back to being a starter in the postseason, which I think, best case scenario, that's what he would be. We're just at the point though, where we're just kind of holding our breath and hoping there's no setback in the rehab start. It's an elbow issue, so you never want a setback there, but especially now when it's September and October's around the corner, like if he has a setback, he's probably looking at being shut down for the year. So I'll definitely be watching to see how he does in that start. And, hopefully if he comes out of it well, his next outing after that would be in the big leagues.
Yeah, you're looking at a scenario where with 25 games left now, you figure he could realistically get 3 starts at the major league level, potentially even 4 if the next one is sort of a bulk, like, hey, we're just going to ask for 3 innings out of you. That could be 4 appearances at the major league level, which would be huge. Again, fingers crossed that everything goes well in that Oklahoma City start on Tuesday. The other positive update is Tony Gonsolin, who's actually slightly ahead of Clayton Kershaw. He had a rehab start already. Dave Roberts said on Sunday that he came out of that start well and could potentially be activated soon, likely won't pitch in St. Louis. I was asked on Saturday night's show who was like one sort of X factor or sleeper, if you will, for if the Dodgers were to make a deep run into the postseason, who could play a significant role in that? And my answer was actually Gonsolin, because I think people forget how good he is when he's healthy, but also because if Gonsolin is effective, that gives you Clayton Kershaw insurance, and that also gives you a little more flexibility with what you want to do for Julio Urias. Gonsolin could be a bullpen arm as well. So to me, just at the very least, Gonsolin, if healthy, big upgrade over David Price, big upgrade over Mitch White, big upgrade over Andre Jackson. This would be huge if Gonsolin could potentially start that Sunday game against the Padres as well.
Yeah, and I mean, I guess we'll see because Gonsolin, he's been dealing with injuries, but he hasn't been that great when he's pitched this year, and part of that could be he was dealing with shoulder injuries, so that could have played a factor. His control's kind of been off. He's been walking a lot more than we're used to seeing from him, but yeah, there's no doubting if he's healthy and he could get anywhere close to what he's capable of, then that's another option for you at the very least. And when we're talking about bullpen games here every week, like. Another starter is never a bad thing, even if he's just like average. We'll take 4 or 5 innings of 2-run ball. Like that's not lighting the world on fire, but that's solid and that's giving you some length. So yeah, absolutely, that's another positive update, which is good to see because this pitching staff is they're pretty taxed right now. There's the starters, guys like Buehler and Julio. They're both at nearing career high in innings, although Julio passed his career high a long time
6 months ago, I think.
Yeah, and a lot of the bullpen guys have been used a lot. So anytime you could get fresh arms in here for the stretch run, that's a good thing.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll give you one more positive update. Danny Duffy, he had a bullpen session. Dave Roberts said was really good. Fastball, curveball change, looked really good. Asked about the next step. Continue to play catch in a few days. He'll probably have another bullpen session. After the next one, we'd probably entertain a simulated game. He is not expected to come back as a starter, but on track. Like if he can have one more of these bullpen games and then a simulated game, all that stuff can happen on a quicker timeline if you're talking about a relief pitcher. And so who
For
knows?
sure.
He might be 2 weeks away from being added to the bullpen. Which, hey, shout out to some of the guys at the back end of the bullpen who have pitched well. Vasquez and Connor Green, I think, is the other guy. I always forget Connor. I feel like
Shane Green.
Not
Shane
Shane.
Green.
Who's the guy who closed out Friday night's game? You weren't even watching. Oh, dang. Anyways, the guy who finished Friday's game, I got to look it up because he actually looked good. I had positive things, so I'll look him up there. But so there could be some help on the way, I guess is the point there, which is good news. The one piece of bad news we'll get to, which is the AJ Pollock update. This was injured on a bizarre freak play on Saturday. We don't need to get into why he was running on that play, but he was. This was Dave Roberts' quote.
Evan Phillips, by the way,
Evan
is
Phillips.
the
Shout out to Evan Phillips. That guy actually looked good on Friday night. I think he pitched again yesterday. But here was Roberts' quote on Saturday. Quote, "I don't want to speculate. I know it wasn't good, and obviously it's a huge loss in any capacity. From what I'm hearing early on, it's a grade 2 strain. It's 2-3 weeks at the minimum. We just got to see how he feels Sunday. I think at the minimum, it's going to be a couple weeks." Sunday, Roberts was asked. He said he felt much better today. Like I said, a couple weeks is probably where we're at. We'll pick up from there. I still see him getting back this season at some point. We just talked about the offense. AJ Pollock, one of 4 guys hitting over 250, and he's been way better than that going back to July and August. So it's tough for a guy who's battled injury stuff and who was hitting the ball so well. But man, that would be huge if the Dodgers could get him back at some point this season.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it's positive news that it's only 2 weeks because, it easily could have been longer and he could have been done for the year. So yeah, I guess that's positive news, but the timing is just so unfortunate here. We need AJ right now. He was arguably the team's best player
Yeah,
since the All-Star break, or definitely one of them. Came up with a lot of big hits. So, like you said, we're not going to speculate why he was trying to steal third because your guess is as good as mine. Who knows?
yeah,
It clearly wasn't a smart play. Even if he didn't get hurt, like he was out by a
yeah.
mile there. So, yeah, I'm not sure what happened there, but let's just hope it's a 2 week thing and he could come back because they're going to need him.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, looking ahead, let's talk about the games ahead. As you mentioned, the Cardinals and Dodgers play today at 1:00. We're recording this Monday morning. As a note, the Dodgers played Sunday Night Baseball on the West Coast and now traveled to St. Louis for a 1 p.m. game on Monday. Not ideal. Scherzer did get there early. He was there in plenty of time. Just looking at this one, Miles Mikolas is on the mound for the Cardinals, 4.41 ERA for him across 4 starts. I'm curious, as bad as the Dodgers have looked the last 3 days, is it possible that this quick turnaround is actually a positive thing?
Yeah, I mean, like I was saying earlier, like I would definitely want to flip the page from last
Yeah.
night's loss, and I'm sure the players feel the same way. So yeah, and it also helps when you got Max Scherzer on the
Yeah.
mound, the way he's been throwing the ball since he came to the Dodgers. So yeah, I mean, I think they're gonna come out and play well today. They probably need to get some length from Max just because they had the bullpen game Friday, 11 innings, and then Walker Buehler only goes 3 innings
Yeah.
yesterday. So they need to get some length from Max. Hopefully he's healthy. Obviously he left
Yep.
his last start after just 6 innings and 75 pitches or whatever it was. So hopefully he's healthy and could give them some length. And if he can, I feel good about their chances. Anytime Max Scherzer's on the mound, you feel good. Michaelis, what'd you say? He's only made 4
Yeah.
starts, so it's not like he's having some terrific year or anything. So hey, maybe today's a good opportunity for the offense to get back on track.
Yeah, I hate to sort of exaggerate something, but it does feel like a must win after you lose a game where Walker. You can't lose 2 games in a row with Buehler and Scherzer on the mound in situations like this. This one feels like a big one for the Dodgers, as you said, with Scherzer on the mound. Tuesday, TBD listed for the Dodgers. Mitch White is expected to be the bulk guy for that one, it sounds like. J.A. Happ on the other side. He has a 6.20 ERA, and that's not a small sample size. That's a pretty big sample size if my numbers are correct. So
Yeah.
that's a big one for the Dodgers. And then Wednesday, to be determined for the Dodgers, Adam Wainwright on the mound for the Cardinals. He's been fantastic. I mean, he's like going to be a top 5 Cy Young finisher. He goes deep into games. He does not allow hits. 2.91 ERA, as I said, for him. And then Urias for the Dodgers on Thursday in the 4-game set versus Kwang Hun Kim, who has a 3.53. He's a pretty solid pitcher that most people haven't really heard too much about, but he's been good for them. So tough 4-game stretch. Scherzer and Urias bookending it with Mitch White and to be determined bullpen games kind of in the middle. As you look at this 4-game series, how do you feel about the Dodgers heading into it, and what are kind of your expectations here?
You don't really have a choice at this point. Like, you probably have to take 3 out of 4. The Giants are playing the Rockies in Colorado. I will say, like, the Rockies have been monumentally better at home than on the road, so I guess that's solid. But at the same time, you can't really rely on the Rockies to beat the
Yeah.
Giants right now, so you got to take care of business yourself. So if you could take 3 out of 4, like you mentioned, Wainwright has been outstanding this year, and it's probably a bullpen game for the Dodgers. So I'd say that's probably the one game you're probably not counting on winning. But when you got Scherzer and Julio in 2 of the games, you definitely want to win those. And then Jay Happ going for the Cardinals in another one. Even if we have Mitch White, I still like the Dodgers in that one. So hopefully they could take 3 out of 4. The Cardinal Stadium, it's kind of hitter friendly, so maybe this is a good chance for the guys to get back on track. It has to happen now. There's no more waiting.
Yeah, and the Cardinals are a 500 team basically this season. Right, they're 3
Right.
games over 500. They're not really in the playoff hunt, and so there's chances for the Dodgers here. The weekend series, the Padres, we've got Buehler versus Musgrove, Scherzer versus Paddock, and to be determined bullpen game against Snell on Sunday. So on one hand, Musgrove, Snell. Guys that have pitched well historically against the Dodgers. Your boy Chris Paddock on Saturday has actually pitched well his last 2 outings. I think he's got a couple quality starts, almost quality start, and then a quality start under his belt yesterday. But you're the Dodgers. You have Buehler and Scherzer in both of those. Again, that Sunday game, I would guess you get Gonsolin. Maybe, who knows? Maybe it's a Kershaw and Gonsolin piggyback. Maybe both of those guys get activated,
Not a bad
and you
idea.
try and get
Yeah.
3 innings from each of them, righty, and then a lefty, or lefty and then a righty. But 3 games against the Padres. We know the Padres have been struggling mightily. Really the whole NL West has kind of been sputtering here, not record-wise, but when you look at the statistics underneath. So 7 games this week, a full week, travel across the country, and then back to the West Coast. You said you want 3 out of 4. I imagine you want at least 2 out of 3 from that Padres series. So is 5-2 kind of the benchmark for the Dodgers this week?
Yeah. I think if you just plan on winning every series, or ideally you throw a couple sweeps in there. It'd be nice if I could get my broom back out. But if you just win every series, you're in a good spot. So yeah, 3 out of 4 from the Cardinals and 2 out of 3 from the Padres. You mentioned Chris Paddock though, and how he had a quality start yesterday. I thought that was kind of funny because I was watching that game, and he honestly, I'll give him credit. He cruised through 6. He was through 6 innings, on like 70 pitches, and then he comes back out for the 7th and gives up 2 absolute rockets to Gurriel and Correa back to back, and then he's out of the game. I thought that was so funny.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
So Daniel, in case you haven't figured out, he's got his life savings down on the Dodgers money line, Scherzer versus Paddock on Saturday night. So you can pencil Daniel in for that one.
That one's a lock right there.
Well, there you go. Dodgers versus the Cardinals in St. Louis. Dodgers versus the Padres over the weekend. Big week ahead for the Dodgers. Obviously, some scoreboard watching will need to take place with the Giants a game up. As far as post-game shows, I'm not sure it's going to happen this week. We were hoping for a Thursday, but as Daniel reminded me today, that's a 10 a.m. game before the Dodgers come home, and then we've got some scheduling stuff on my end on Friday and Saturday. So potentially no post-game. We'll see. Maybe we'll do a live show on Thursday night, sort of ahead of the Padres series and following the Cardinals series. Stay tuned for that. But we appreciate you joining us. Again, 25 games to go. Dodgers 1 game back in the division. Tony Gonsolin, Clayton Kershaw, Danny Duffy. Positive updates. A.J. Pollock maybe not done for the year. The Dodger offense has been terrible. They've still won 14 out of the last 19. Pitching has been the best in baseball. My word for the year is confusing. Hopefully we get some clarity, less confusion. If the Dodgers can win, let's say 18 out of the next 25 games, win the division by a couple of games and call it good. That's what we're hoping for. So that's Daniel Starkand. I'm Jeff Spiegel. We'll end a little early today so we can get this posted before today's early game. Check out Dodger Blue 1958 for all the latest on social media, dodgerblue.com, post-game content, all that kind of thing. That's Daniel Starkand. You can find him there at Twitter. My name is Jeff Spiegel. We appreciate you joining us. Enjoy the week.
The best team holding a trophy high in the air. The Los Angeles Dodgers, champions of the baseball world.